So hello, this is the Marketing Optimist Marketing Sandwich course. I'm Richard Mickey. This is one of the series of ones we've done. We've got some more coming up. I'm just lining some more up. And today we're going to talk a little bit to Russell Harvey, who is a resilience coach, or the resilience coach, with the emphasis on the. Although I'm sure, no, I was going to say others available, but no, they're not. Russell is the only one. And the point of these webinars is so that we can share a bit of best practice. We can all kind of learn from each other, and hopefully we can take some learnings away. As I said before, for people who weren't already on the call, I'm not going to share anybody's email addresses or any contact details, but if you do want to share them, just pop them in the group chat and people can connect to you if that's what you'd like to do. Also, if you have any questions at all, drop them in the group chat, or just kind of raise your hand and we'll address those as we come to them. If it's probably better if, unless you've got a specific question you want to ask, that you stay muted, but feel free to unmute if you've got something that you want to ask. Cool. So without further ado, I just want to introduce Russell Harvey, the resilience coach, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his approach. I might chip in with a couple of questions every now and again, try and relate that to marketing, as obviously because that's what I'm doing. Yeah. So over to you, Russell.
Thank you, Richard. And I'm really trying to concentrate on remembering how to say your surname, because I think I've been saying it wrong for a while now.
That's fine.
Yes, welcome to everybody on the call. I really appreciate the opportunity just to chat with this. I've been on some of Richard's other calls and they've just been really helpful. So what he's been putting on has been lots of good value. And I suppose talking about resilience, this is a word that is being utilised an awful lot at this moment in time. And it's just to give a short opportunity for people on the call and those listening on a recording to maybe just clarify what resilience is and isn't. There's a real question of timing around this at this moment in time. So I've really been trying to just go out to clients and just check in with them around how they are with a simple telephone call. Really not trying to sell anything to them, because this word resilience at this moment in time, yes, we might need it, but we're in the thick of it. We're literally just in the thick of it at this moment in time. And the overall bits and pieces that I specialize in are resilient leadership in a VUCA world. So the world we're in now is volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous, which is a different suite of things that we could talk about a different time, but it's just understanding the context of the world we live in, which is the fact that it is full on and it's a crazy world a huge amount of the time. And so resilience skills are really useful to look at in that. If anybody wants to, in a second, I'm just going to share some slides and just really do a whistle-stop tour of a few slides around the components of resilience, 10 tips for building resilience, which is a blog that I wrote a couple of weeks ago. Quickly go through those. And yesterday, I recorded 10 short video clips of the 10 tips, which I have to think carefully before I say, and I'll be slowly drip feeding those on social media. And we'll also end on some resilient strengths. So it's just thinking about how resilient you are, what you can do going away from here to just play around with your resilience levels, and feel free to share it with some others. If anyone's got any questions as things that we go through, put them into the chat. And one favor that you can do me is I'm genuinely interested in continuing to sort of check in and ask if we do build our resilience levels, or we play around with them, or we focus on them, what's the benefits to us as a leader, as a human being, as to organizations. So if anybody's got any thoughts as we go through these, then feel free to put them in the chat and just go, actually, so if I worked on my resilience, then the benefit to me would be, it's useful to just sort of think about those. So I'm going to share my screen and we will go through just a few quick slides that I'll put together for this. So I think, Richard, you're unmuted, so will you just sort of shout up to say you can see the screen?
Yep, it's all clear from my point of view.
Wonderful, great stuff. So I just had a bit of toast just beforehand, so I haven't quite got a sandwich, but literally just before this I had some toast. One of the things that we really need to get used to, in my personal opinion, around defining resilience is that quite often when we look it up or ask anybody, they talk about this word bounce back, which is in their sort of dictionary definitions, and it's my personal opinion just to be careful around that word, because the underlying essence around resilience is to learn from life's events, learn from experiences. So sometimes if we say to ourselves, I'm going to face into a situation, I'm going to deal with it, and then I'm going to go back to how I was before that particular experience, then for me, there's just a bit of a risk that we don't learn. So I'm on a personal crusade that if in the future anybody says resilience is a bounce back, I'd love for you to just stop, pause, have a conversation with them and go, well, hang on a minute, resilience is about learning. So if you have an experience of life, you have to face into it, you deal with it and use your resiliency levels. You then need to learn from it to then spring forward to an adapted version of yourself that is reflected upon the skills, the capabilities, the attitude, the behaviors, the mindset that you have to put together. So I just prefer spring forward rather than bounce back. And if you agree with me, then please come on a crusade with me around challenging the terminology around bounce back. I would appreciate that. So what we've got here, this is from my website, the Resilience Wheel. So this is a build upon all of the fantastic work by Robertson Cooper. So at the heart of resilience is our attitudes, so how we think and feel about a situation, and purpose, confidence, adaptability and support, as well as attitude, are the original dimensions of resilience around the model from Robertson Cooper. And I have just added a couple more to those as energy and meaning. So how you can look at this is any coaches on the call, you know, we sometimes do a wheel of life. So when I talk through each of these different aspects around resilience, you can just be thinking about how you would rate yourself, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10 on these 7 components, or smiley face to sad face, around where you are around these. So anybody that's on the call now or listening to this later can actually just scribble down the resilience wheel and actually self-assess where they think they are on these different aspects, and then just spend some time working on a particular one that's got that they've got some energy for. So to just go through them really simplistically, and there's descriptions of these on my website. So attitudes at the heart of it. So our essentially our settled belief about the world is our attitude. What's our underlying attitude towards anything? Do we think that life happens to us, or we have some level of control, or we can manage what happens to us in life? So it's our underlying attitude. Purpose, it's more than a goal, is purpose. Purpose is what are we here for? So in terms of my personal example, I want to positively affect 100,000 people by the year 2025. That's my purpose. If anyone is interested right now, I'm up to 17,223. I have a purpose. I don't necessarily need to put numbers to it, but some people like to measure things. So there's a reason that I get out of bed each day. So it's like, what's your purpose? How come you're here? What's the legacy that you want to leave? Confidence then is the balance of our positive and negative thoughts. So, you know, how often in terms of our self-talk have we got a balance between our positive and negative thoughts? Confidence is a huge topic. Really, really simplistically, how you build your confidence is to have a go at something, reflect upon anything that went well about it, and do it again. Obviously, there's huge amount more to confidence, but in its simplistic sense, for the time that we've got today, confidence is about having a go at something, reflect what went well about it, and do it again. Adaptability is our overall openness to change. So at this moment in time, there's extra levels of significant change that have been taking place. But just in life, in general, how open are you to change? And there's just an understanding that our brains all of the time are trying to keep us safe by supporting us to not change our behavior. So we're always in a bit of a battle with ourselves around keeping ourselves safe. It's like, no, we're not going to do a change because where we are now is good and safe. So adaptability is our openness to change. Support is our support network. So who have we got in our life that supports us? Friends, family, coach, priest, mentor, good pals, etc., etc. Who have we got in life that supports us? And depending on our personality type, some of us will have more than others. Those that are extroverts actually will potentially have a larger support network. Those that are natural introverts are re-energized by themselves. So it's a case that they may have fewer people in their support network. But it's a case of when you are talking to the people in your support network, are they useful, enjoyable, energizing conversations, or are they unhelpful, de-energizing conversations? So you've got to be just careful around the amount of people you've got in your support network. Do they actually support you, or do they drain you? So that's something you need to think about. And meaning, so what I mean by this is we have an awful lot of self-talk. We talk to ourselves about life's experiences. And this comes out in everyday terms around whenever we are asked a question around, how's your day been? How was that meeting? How was that experience? Our response to that is the meaning that we have attached to that particular event. So if we notice historically, not now, when we come back from work at the end of the day and open the front door and somebody says, how was your day, dear? It's noticing how you describe that. So if you were saying, oh, it was terrible, it was awful, everything went wrong, as opposed to, well, actually, it was quite challenging, it was quite difficult, but we got through it and I learned this. It's the meaning that we attach to events. But also remember, it's perfectly okay for you to explain it however you want. It's just understanding how you are describing it to yourself and others. And then energy, there's quite a bit that's in here. So that's the whole health and well-being piece around diet and exercise. It has got something for me to do with the introvert and extrovert around personality types. So that's how we re-energize ourselves. Introverts are re-energized predominantly by spending a bit more time with themselves and doing some solitary activities because they're re-energizing inside themselves, and extroverts are energized by the outside world. So that's the wheel in a nutshell. And any time you want to, score yourself out on 10 of these around how well you think you are on them, and just be playing around with them. And there's extra descriptions on the website. So something we often talk about in the resilience sphere is we might have a resilience reservoir or your resilience bath. So obviously when you work upon the wheel, you'll be filling your bath. And so it is actually, you want to feel this nice warm bath that is enveloping you, which is actually building and maintaining your resiliency levels as you face into life's experiences. So it's understanding how full your bath is, and actually what might come along and spring a leak in your bath. So what affects, what reduces your resiliency levels. And these 10 tips, there'll be others, there'll be loads more. There'll be 10 tips that will help you fill your bath. So the idea around this is to think about 2 or 3 of these as I quickly talk through them that may be useful to you, that energize you, that you want to do, and thinking about actually which of these you're going to play around with. Top of the list for me is self-compassion. So that's just, for me, a different way of saying being kind to yourself. It's perfectly all right to have any thoughts and feelings you're having about any particular situation. It's just understanding how helpful are they to you, and just noticing that if you're getting lots of thoughts that are being unhelpful and taking you into a negative spiral, just be careful about what you're going to do about that and trying to reframe it. And to do that, you need empathy and emotional intelligence. So empathy is about understanding something from somebody else's point of view, and you need your own emotional intelligence to do that. And be careful with wonderful positive intent. Human beings often say, I know how you feel. And that isn't an empathic statement. It comes from a great place, but just be careful, because the next thing that could happen is someone could shout and scream at you and slap you in the face, because they could go, no, you don't know how I feel. So empathy is about just articulating and understanding that somebody has got their thoughts and feelings. So understand your own to be able to actually support others with theirs. And the trick out of that is you might have a conversation with somebody and you make different choices around how you're going to behave as a result of the conversation you're going to make. You're not both going to come to the same conclusion around how you're going to move forward from that situation. So empathy is about enabling yourself and others to make healthy choices around what they're going to do. Humor is enormous and fantastic. Use this time now to think about who your favorite comedians are, your favorite shows. If there are any family members listening, get your kids to start writing jokes okay, and see what they come up with. Humor is a fantastic thing. It has a chemical effect upon us as well. Focus. What I mean by this is that in times of change, which is all the time, by the way, focus on the things that have stayed the same to give yourself some grounding. So focus on the things that have stayed the same to give yourself some grounding. If you're ever feeling all at sea, then, you know, make a list, make a note, do a mind map, do a spider diagram around everything that's stayed the same, and focus on those for a period of time. It'll give you a level of grounding. Connect and communicate. We're social creatures as human beings. So as we are now, we're doing social distancing, but not social isolation. So make sure you just connect with the human beings and talk to them, ask them how they are. Mindlessness, what I mean by this is mindfulness obviously is superb and fantastic, and I get loads of benefits from it. However, for me, this is an opportunity to literally switch off, stare into space, zone out, and do nothing. An opportunity to just totally mindlessness is really helpful. If you've got a problem or a decision to make, sometimes when you completely switch off, you get an activity and you just absorb yourself in something else or stare into space, then sometimes the answer comes to you. Give yourself the opportunity to just switch off. Adaptability, we've talked about as one of the specific dimensions. Openness to change. Learning. So I said right at the start, we must learn from every experience. It's a real tip around resilience. Just anything that happens to you, take a moment to pause, reflect, learn strengths, skills, capabilities, behaviors, energies that you use to it. There is research as well that if you volunteer, then that actually does something to you around actually supporting your sort of psyche and your health and well-being and your value system. Just doing something for somebody else without really expecting anything in return actually does great things for you. And the past when I've done it, I've noticed that. And food and activity is an enormous one. I am not an expert on food and activity. Just understand this is all about a balance of input and output. Maybe just think about the fact that, you know, men and women need a certain set of calories per day, even if they were just going to sit around and do nothing. You know, I think for men, and forgive me if I get it wrong, roughly 2,000 calories if we're just going to sit all day and do nothing. So think about our balance of input and output, what you're putting in, what you're taking out, and that'll affect your energy levels. So if you look at the wheel and those 10 tips, and there'll be others, these are resilience strengths. So a high frustration tolerance, self-acceptance, humor gives you perspective, emotional intelligence, and absorbing interests. That is resilience in a nutshell. It's not one thing. My big takeaway from this is thinking about learning and springing forward. Even in these particular times, I'm really, really curious about how we are going to learn from everything that's happened to us. And I do get a little bit worried when people still now talk about, so when this pandemic is over, we will go back. I'm sitting there at this moment in time and going, well, actually, we aren't going to go back. We're never going to go back to how it was. We are going to do things differently permanently. So there is going to be a new normal. So I think really for yourselves personally, thinking about what your new normal is how you're going to actually build upon this, learn and spring forward. That's me. That's resilience in a nutshell. Any comments, thoughts, questions, things you want to stick in the chat, anything you want me to go over again?
So as a marketer, what we do a lot of, and then we did this obviously before the event, as I'm going to call it, is we're known for being really adaptable. We work really agilely, so we kind of go with the flow a lot. We kind of go, right, this has happened, spin everything around. The last couple of weeks we've had to spin around so many different plans, from people going one direction and suddenly people just turned 180 degrees and gone the other way because they've had to adapt. So that thing about springing forward is really comes home to me as a from a marketing point of view. It's like, no, you can't kind of just keep going back. One of the things from a marketer's point of view is you do things and you try things and you learn from what works. What works, you carry on. What doesn't work, you ditch. And when what was working stops, you find something new. So you're always going forward. You're always working on new stuff. So I really love that thing about about the spring forward and not bounce back. And
Yeah.
also the resilience wheel. I love how that it's almost like perfectly ties into the position we're all in now, where everything's gone topsy-turvy. And so if you don't kind of work on that virtuous wheel, you can find yourself in a real mess.
Yeah.
And going back to the kind of the 10 top tips, I love the mindlessness one, because at first I looked at it and thought, surely it should be mindfulness, but I really like the mindlessness one. Is, again, lots of ideas come to me when I'm either having a shower or taking a walk, when I can't actually do anything else, but suddenly your head floods with all these ideas.
Yeah.
So mindlessness, I love that. And again, one of the other points of that was the kind of the connect one, the connect with the community. Again, this is the whole point of doing these webinars as well, so that we can all meet other people, have fresh ideas, and make some sort of connection where we can't. Normally, we'd all be sat having a coffee or whatever and shaking hands. Don't know if that's going to happen again for a while.
No, I did actually have my first world problem moment last week. So I do really enjoy. So I do a mixture of working from home and going out and doing face-to-face events. When I'm working from home, I do have to take myself out of the house once a day and go to a local coffee shop. And for the first time last week, I had about a 10-minute paddy, and then, threw my toys out of the pram to go, why can't I go to a coffee shop? I just love that idea of being in a different space, a change of four walls. But then I had a word with myself, and it really wasn't a problem, and it wasn't a challenge. I went and sat on the front step instead.
Oh, there you go.
But I just noticed that I had a moment. And picking up on that, you're coming around, go with the flow. That's a real piece of terminology in the VUCA world. So the VUCA world is like riding the rapids, whitewater rafting. That's something that we really need to think about in terms of where we are. When we're being resilient, we're okay going with the flow, and then deciding that when we might put our oar in the water to actually make a change or try and affect our situation. And one other thing you mentioned around the adaptability piece, around if something isn't working, stopping it. And that's the real challenge for human beings, because we will keep going with something that isn't working, even when all of the information is showing us this isn't working, because we have a belief that we should, have a goal and stick to it. So that's quite often a real tension. So that's something that is really useful for you to sort of reflect about. Is there something that you've been a bit stubborn on, or it just feels easier to keep going with it, because then you're going to have to sort of accept, self-acceptance, that something you're trying isn't working, and that's not easy to do as human beings. So that's something to just be careful of.
Yeah, it's really tricky, because a lot of people will plough along with their belief. As anyone's read Simon Sinek about the why thing, if you've got that why embedded in your head, it's really difficult to maybe stop and admit at some point that maybe that was the wrong why, or that why is why rather than why. So that's interesting. Does anybody have anything to take away from what Russell said, or any questions for Russell or me? Feel free to either unmute yourself or stick it in the chat.
Has anybody got anything around what they think the benefits to them will be of being more resilient? I'm always curious about that. Or if there are, in terms of the roles that you're doing or organisations that you work in. Russell, you look like you're unmuted.
I would basically, like you've said, just the actual zoning out. I think that's, I'm in a sales role, and I got furloughed last week, and just like you, I had a moment. Right. So literally, I've not been out of work since started in work. So kind of like having an arm chopped off, where now I'm not allowed to work. And you go, I mean, I'm not allowed to work. It's a weird experience. So I'm using that time now to try and adapt how I work and adapt, just learn things that I didn't have time to learn, or on things like that. And I think the fact that, like you just said about the mindlessness, I've never given myself time to do that. And you kind of think now, happy days. Let's just go, right, well, is what you've been doing right, isn't it? So I think, really opened my eyes this morning. And again, having the fill in the bath. Don't often fill the bath, because generally you're rushing out of the shower to do something else. I think having the time to actually fill that bath will be really interesting. And
that's good.
Already, and again, I think the big thing is for me is routine. So I've literally got up this morning, done a run, eaten well. I've kind of said, right, we'll eat rubbish at the weekend, eaten well, and got to grips with the fact that you might not be able to do any work, but you can actually do a lot of research and learn things that you might not have had time to do. So, and I think it's just interesting times. And I like you said, I don't think we'll get back to normal for a long, long time, and that normal won't be the same. Definitely.
No, it will be a new normal. It is useful to people to think that there isn't a version of a back to normal that exists, but that's okay, because we're going to have a new normal. But shaping your own new normal is within your gift to do something about in some of your reflections. And also just something to be mindful of is those people in your position that have been furloughed, and also the changes that we're going through, it's affecting lots of people's sleep patterns. So we will be tired because we're going through lots of changes. You know, it's the case of your the only analogy at the moment is like, imagine you go on your 2-week holiday, you have a change of circumstances, and then suddenly you find that you're having an afternoon kip at times or things like that. So it's also being mindful that a lot of people in your position with these changes, people have been saying to me, I seem to be just absolutely shattered and I've got all this free time. And it's to go, yes, you will, because your brain is dealing with all of these changes. So it'll take you a while to get in terms of a new rhythm. Routines are great, but your brain will also be sort of affecting your energy levels as well.
Yeah, I'm staying up much later now, just reading, and you kind of go, and like I say, forcing myself up this morning at 7 was a shock to the system after a week where I haven't done it, and now you go, right, just crack on. So there'll be long days now. I'm hoping that means if I get up early, I go to bed at the right time.
Well, just for a little while, self-compassion, allow yourself for it to be as it is. Absolutely. Routine's great, and give yourself some wiggle room as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Mel, did I see you unmute yourself? Did you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think self-compassion is a key thing that I probably need to focus on more. I think that just trying to juggle homeschooling and working at home and trying to get new business in as well. And, there's just a lot of stuff that I'm trying to deal with. And I think I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself. So I think I probably, maybe do need to practice a bit of self-compassion and a bit of giving myself a bit of a break and accepting that everybody's having a really, really hard time and it's a really difficult time. And maybe I'm expecting too much of myself and I should just not put this massive amount of pressure on myself.
What is it you do, Mel?
I'm a PR consultant and copywriter.
Oh, okay. Maybe we should have a chat afterwards then.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
Oh, sorry, Russell, what were you going to say?
Yeah, and it's like building upon Mel's point. So it's something that I've seen a few times, but if you could find a way to allow this to land with you, accept it. So for a lot of people, the change of the moment is you've suddenly become a parent, a worker, for those that haven't been furloughed, a homeschooler, and a carer for others. And they are 4 different independent full-time jobs. We're asking one person to do all 4. So stop. It can't be done. So stop trying. Okay. I know it's easier said than done, but if you can find a way to allow that to settle or allow your brain and your heart to take that on board, there's only so much that one human being can do. So just try a few things, do something, have a go at it, reflect on what went well about it to build your confidence, and then just do something else. And don't try and do everything, because we can't.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. So I think I need to just kind of focus on what's most important and not worry too much about the rest.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Easier said than done, but just have a go.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Anything from anybody else? I know that these are just short sessions, so I know there's some comments in the chat. So
so has anyone got anything else they want to ask Russell or me or anybody else for that matter? I mean, it's an open forum. No, we're all okay. Cool. Right, so so thanks everyone for coming on the call. This is the last one I've got in that's planned on the website, so I'm gonna have to, but I have got some more in the pipeline. Hopefully there'll be another one next week and the week after that. And I am looking for guest speakers as well. So if you know anybody or you yourself would like to come on and talk about what you do and what you'd like to share, then just get in touch. I have been recording this, so very shortly this will be on our YouTube channel, and we'll also share it out on LinkedIn and all the other Marketing Optimist channels. So thanks everyone for taking the time. I hope you have a good day and you stay safe and well, and I'll meet you all soon, hopefully. Thanks a lot.
Lovely. Thanks everyone. Really appreciate you coming on.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.